Alright, gentlemen, what I'm about to recite to you is one of my favorite books that my mother read to me as a little boy. I think it's like the Dr. Seuss of creation. It rhymes all the way through, and its pictures of God creating the earth are just mesmerizing. It is time to remember Elohim, who created time. It is time to remember how God created you. Once it was black as could be. There was nothing to hear, and there was nothing to see. And then, out of the darkness, a voice could be heard, as sweet as a song, as swift as a bird. It sang with delight in the blackness of night. It rang through the air with power and might. Let there be light! And oh, what a light! It shimmered and sparkled that very first day as it dazzled and danced the darkness away. The angels were watching with all of their might. They clapped when they saw that marvelous light. And they heard God say, as they knew He would, "Ah, the light is good." But then God commanded, "Let there be sky." And the water began to quiver and sigh, and some went low and some went high, and sandwiched in this space between, so fresh and clean was the sky. Oh my, was sky so clear and blue. And that's what happened on day number 2. Water was all over the world. It rolled and splashed and swished and swirled. But there was no place for it to land. No rocky cliff or beach of sand, until God said, "Let there be land." And the water began to bubble and boil, and out of the deep came rocks and soil that pushed and shoved their way so high they almost seemed to touch the sky. The waves rushed up to kiss the beach. They went as far as they could reach, then tumbled back into the sea and laughed with glee. But God said, "Wait, I am not through. There's something else I have to do. The land is brown, the land is bare, and it needs a gown of green to wear. So let there be both bush and tree, and plants and flowers everywhere." It's on shuffle, actually. Beg your pardon. God said, "Wait, I am not through. There's something else I have to do. The land is brown, the land is bare, and it needs a gown of green to wear. So let there be both bush and tree, and plants and flowers everywhere." His words fell softly onto the land, like tiny seeds from a gardener's hand that quickly grew at his command. How grand! If you had been there on that day, it would have swept your breath away. For tender shoots began to show, while thirsty roots grew down below. The grass began to spread like fire. Bushes and trees grew even higher. Flowers showed their perky faces. Fruits and vines grew in their places. Brown tomatoes, round tomatoes, yellow corn and golden wheat, juicy cherries, luscious berries, all the food that you could eat. And so it was, when day was through, the world was much more green and blue. But then, something happened on day number 4. Something that never had happened before. A strange new light began to glow, and a ball of fire began to show. The sun appeared. It shone so bright. It warmed the earth and gave it light. The sun, oh, what fun. I'm sure God knew that it would be a cheery sight for us to see. And then at night, when day was done, another light would be the one to shine and glow. My, what a show. Wait. Shazam, hooray, shazoom! It seemed as though the sky would boom! 100 million twinkling stars, Jupiter and planet Mars came bursting out! Oh me, oh my, it was like fireworks across the sky! It was so great. It was so fine when God made all of the lights that shine. Now, the world was such a quiet place. There was a lot of empty space, and every sound was a quiet sound. The whisper of leaves, and the playful breeze that rustled the grass along the ground. Then, of course, there was the sound of the sea. It was just as gentle as could be, and here and there, a waterfall or babbling brook, but that was all. Until God spoke the simple words, "Let there be birds! Let them fly in the sky! Let there be fish! Let their tails go swoosh!" Oh, and suddenly, instead of quiet, you would have thought there was a riot. Flocks of birds were everywhere, down on the ground and up in the air. And let me tell you, girls and boys, they made some noise. Some of them began to tap, others began to squawk and flap. They cooed, they honked, they whistled a song, they screeched and they crackled all day long. Oh, and what feathers. They looked so grand as they hopped and they flew throughout the land. Some of them wore their finest gowns. Others were dressed to look like clowns, as though a circus had come to town. But down, 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 far down, down below, there was a different kind of show. First, there were schools of fish. Oh, how I wish you'd seen those fish. They darted here, they darted there, those silver fish were everywhere. And then there was the mighty whale. What a head and what a tail. How he loved to swim about, blowing water from his spout. Oh, there were other creatures too. Some were red, some were blue, some had wings and some had jaws, some had arms and some had claws. How amazing! What a wonder! What another world down under! For that very wet location was a part of God's creation. Then, on day number 6, God made the creatures. He gave each one some special features. Some were big, some were tall, some were short, and some were small. But the Lord God had made them all. And He had them all. Some of them were rather hairy. Others looked a little scary. Some could jump, some could trot, some were cuddly, and some were not. But if you had been there on that day, you could have watched them run and play and heard them bark and howl and neigh. You would have said, "Hooray!" But God wasn't through. He looked around, saw some space upon the ground. So God made every creeping critter, some that crawl, and some that flitter, some that hung, and some that buzz, and some that had a lot of fuzz. God had such an imagination when He made that bug creation. Now you may have thought that God was through. But there was still one more thing He had to do. Elohim stooped down upon the land. He scooped up some dust and sand and fashioned it into a man. Ha! What a plan. Now the man God made was tall, strong, and great. But still, God said, he needs a mate. He needs a wife. So hand in hand they both can rule the sea and the land. Well, the man God made looked all around. But this is what the poor man found. For every she there was a he, and for every him there was a her. But everyone else had feathers or fur. So while he slept, God made a wife, and he breathed into her the breath of life. That man awoke, she took a bow, and all that man could say was, "Wow!" But if you had seen that man and wife, and watched them as they came to life, I'm sure you would have understood why God would say it's very good. Finally, on day number 7, the God of earth, the God of heaven, wisely said, I think it's best for us to have a day of rest. And these are but the outer fringes of God's works. How faint we hear the whisper of them. Who then can understand the thunder